Hey guys, I'm Kristy and this is my Crafty Country. For our first craft, we're going to be using these mason jars, and I covered all three of the jars in chalk paint. Dollar Tree does have mason jars. I think these are just some I had on hand, but I'm doing one base coat of white chalk paint. That way my other paint will stick on better because that chalk paint really grabs a hold of the glass and helps. I believe I did 2 coats of the chalk paint, but once that is completely dry, I went through and on 2 of the jars, I used painter's tape and taped off lines all the way around the jar to where I could do my red and white stripes. So obviously the jar is already white, so I just have to tape it off and then use the Waverly red chalk paint. I think it's crimson, and I'll link all those below. But yeah, just tape it off and make sure it's on there good so it doesn't bleed through. And then go ahead and lightly paint your red. You probably want to do a couple coats. I believe I used a brush here, but if you're nervous about it, just do a sponge and just do it lightly. And then you can just do more than 1 coat, because if you do it super thick, it might bleed through. So sponges are a good option, but this actually worked really good for me. Now on to our third jar, and all I did was I covered the entire jar with the Waverly chalk paint. It's blue. I'm not sure what the exact color is. I'll try to put that in. And like I said, everything will be in the description. You can check and look at once you get the blue on there if it needs another coat. If you think so, go for it. I don't believe mine did. And so now I just wait for them to dry, and then I can add my embellishments and my flowers. Once everything was completely dry, I went ahead and removed the painter's tape, and they turned out wonderful. I think there might have been a tiny spot or 2 where it bled underneath the tape, but they turned out really good. I was very happy. I know some crafters will take the tape off when the paint is still wet, but I was too nervous. I didn't want to accidentally hit it, so I waited. And then once everything was dry, I got these stars and some twine. And I actually wrapped the twine around the top of all 3 jars, just kind of loose and rough. I think I wrapped it around like 3 or 4 times, and then cut it off and glued it in place. And then I also used some twine and poked a hole in the top of the star and glued the twine down into it. You'll see that here in just a minute after I get done doing these. But that worked really well. I just used like a pencil. I poked a hole in the star and then put some hot glue on the end of the twine and shoved it down into that hole to where it didn't have to wrap around the star, but I could still hang it from my blue jar, and it turned out so cute. And this part you want to be careful with, but I used a lighter and went around and burned off all of the little frayed pieces on my rope, and or my twine, and it actually makes the twine look darker. But it kind of cleans it up and makes it look a lot better. Do that before you put your stars on, because obviously the stars are styrofoam and you don't want to melt them with your lighter. For my next project, I am going to make a freedom sign using these Dollar Tree wooden planks. And all I did was I used the Waverly antiquing wax and painted it on, and then wiped it right off. And I did this to 7 different pieces, and I'm going to make a freedom sign. After all my planks were stained and completely dried, I cut out some letters on my Cricut to spell out the word freedom, and put 1 letter on each plank, and then painted over it with Waverly chalk paint in red, white, and blue. I believe this is crimson, and then I used the same blue that I used on the jars, and then I used the color plaster for the white. Now, since I'm making the word freedom, I did alternate red, white, and blue just to kind of give it a cool look. Then once I peel these stickers off, it will reveal the stained portion of the plank. with the painted outline. To attach all of my letters together, I use this wood slat that I have, just a long strip of wood. It is pretty much comparable to a paint stir stick, so that would work out well. So I just lined them all up, and make sure you have them right when you flip them over. Just be extra careful because you don't want to have it all out of line. And then just use E6000 and hot glue. And if you've done it before, you know the hot glue gives you the hold right now, but then the E6000 will set up over time and give you a stronger hold. And then here I used a couple little pieces of scrap wood and made a little stand for it. And all I did was I just glued them together in an L shape and then attached one piece to the back, and the other piece would hang over in the front to just give it a stand. I ended up putting this up against a wall, but that stand was just a little extra help. If you wanted to hang it, all you would need to do is use some jute twine on the top, and that would work out really well too. But that was how I did my stand. Here I am going to wrap some twine around the bottom of the sign, and I think I made like 3 laps around the bottom and then just hot glued it in place. And that just gives a little more of a vintagey farmhouse looking deal. Then I used some of the Dollar Tree styrofoam stars that they have. I don't know if they have them this year. I got these last year, but I know they've had them for a while. So I just glued some of those at the bottom and then used my sanding stone to kind of give it more of a worn look. And that was all I had to do for this sign, and I absolutely loved it. A lot of my DIYs I either give away or donate, but this one is definitely staying on my shelf for my patriotic decorations. For my next one, I'm going to give this mason jar a makeover, and I think this one was from Dollar Tree. A friend of mine sent it to me, but I know Dollar Tree has mason jars for like all seasons. So first thing I did was I covered it in the color plaster, and then I used one of these metallic markers and just kind of gave the outline of the top of the jar, and then sanded it just a tiny bit to just kind of weather it a little bit, I guess. Then I used some of the Waverly antiquing wax and just dry brushed around the outside of it and gave it more of a vintagey look. Now I'm going to make a messy bow to put at the top, and I just used 3 different types of ribbon, and I cut 4 strips of each type. So they don't have to be perfect when it comes to length. I just kind of eyeballed it, and I think I would guess they're about 5 to 6 inch pieces. And then I dovetailed the ends of all of them, and that just, if you don't know what dovetailing is, it's just where you give it that little point at the bottom, and all you have to do is fold it over and cut from the middle down. Once I get all of my pieces cut and prepped, all I do is I layer them on. I just crisscross them back and forth and alternate different types, and then I'm going to bunch it up in the middle and tie it off with a piece of, I think I used a pipe cleaner, but you can also just use regular wire. It really doesn't matter. Just make sure you get it tight, that way they don't go anywhere. Now I just fluff it up and it will be ready to go on my sign. I have these USA letters that I got at Dollar Tree last year. I think they still have these this year, but all I did was hot glue them to the front of the sign, just kind of at an angle. And then I put my messy bow at the top and put the star that was on this sign before. I put it back on right in the middle of the messy bow. And I absolutely love this sign. A friend of mine, she really liked it, so I'm actually going to send it to her. But I would totally make another one of these for myself to go with my decorations. I absolutely loved it. And I hope you guys did too. Once I had the front of it all done up, I got a piece of twine and tied knots in both ends. And then I am just going to hot glue that to the back of the sign and use a popsicle stick to kind of help secure it in place. That way the glue doesn't pop off, because I know sometimes with these MDF board signs, It can come off pretty easy, so that's just a little added security to keep the twine from trying to get away. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The mason jar craft that I did, I actually did a small set out of baby food jars, so that's an idea. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know below which one was your favorite, or if you have any ideas what I could do next. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching.